Dr. Heelan?
Here.
Mrs. Maroney?
Here.
Mrs. Ward?
Here.
Mr. Shi?
Here.
Mrs. Madiger?
Here.
Mr. Errico?
Yeah.
Mrs. Peng?
Here.
Mr. Brescher?
Here.
Mr. DiStefano?
Here.
All present.
The opening statement, the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies of which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Edison Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted in the Board of Education administrative offices. Copies of these notices were sent to the Home News Tribune and the Star Ledger on January 5th, August 15, and 31, and September 7, 2017. The public may participate at regular meetings in accordance with the bylaws and the applicable state regulations. And I'd just like to make one announcement, and that is just relating to the postponement of the superintendent's contract. And just the Edison community has had a great deal of controversy in politics during the previous few months. Consequently, the hearing and vote on the proposed contract with the superintendent of schools scheduled for October 11, 2017 has been canceled. The next Board of Education, taken over in January 2018, will deal with this issue. Okay, and now we have the approval of the minutes, September 13th and 18th, 2017. If you have any questions, please see Mr. Michaud, and then we'll have the administrative reports, the superintendent report. Dr. O'Malley?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Heelan. At this time, I'm going to ask Dr. Susan Millar to please come up to the podium. She will be presenting about our programs that we have in the district with our partnership with Rutgers and some of the things that they are dealing with in our schools. So welcome, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Dr. O'Malley and board members. I'm very happy to be here today. So I'm Dr. Millar. I'm the clinician supervisor for the P.A.T.H program, which is our school-based program in Edison. And it's a program that's run through Rutgers University Behavioral Health Care, or UBHC. So let me tell you a little bit about UBHC. So it is the largest community-based mental health agency in the country. So there's a lot of children's mental health expertise. And because it's so large, we have a continuum of services. So we have access to prevention programming, outpatient, thank you so much, outpatient services, partial hospitalization services, which is day programs where students would go throughout the day instead of going to school and still receive education. They have inpatient services, Traumatic Loss Coalition, which is an organization through Rutgers that is really focused on supporting schools with different traumas that occur throughout the state, and of course school-based services, which is our program. So schools across the country are really recognizing the need to be aware and acknowledge that mental health services are required for students. According to the Committee on School Health, which is a organization that covers school districts across the country, they really found that about 20% of students struggle with different mental health concerns. So school-based programs really bring these services right into the school system, which makes them much more accessible for students and provide services for those that may not have access to them otherwise. So our philosophy is really focused on emotional wellness equals academic success. So if we're able to support our children's emotional well-being, then they will do better in school. So the vision of school-based programs is really focused on academic success is linked to social, emotional, and physical well-being. So children who are socially, emotionally, and physically doing well will do much better academically. So we're able to provide services, as I mentioned, to those who wouldn't have access otherwise for a variety of reasons. And these services are offered in a safe, comfortable environment that really reduces that stigma of mental health services. It's right inside the schools where kids feel comfortable and families feel comfortable. So our school-based model is really focused on meeting the local needs. So it's really focused on meeting the needs of the district. It's focused on meeting the needs of the students within each of the different schools within the district. And because we come in as a community provider, it really provides that link between the community and schools. And because we work for such a large organization, it allows for that collaboration between the community and the schools in providing these services to the children. We're 12-month employees, so we're available before school, during school, after school, and we're also available all summer to students. And we're really focused on bringing diversity of programming, so we really, again, focus the services on the needs of the students within the different buildings. We have flexibility in terms of how we provide those services, so whether it be groups or different programs that we bring for students and parents, or providing individual therapies. And again, because of this large organization, we have this continuum of services, so we can provide services on the outpatient level, but if the child needs a higher level of care, we're able to make those connections. And we are outcome driven, and I'll talk a little bit more about how we measure those outcomes in a little bit. So what is the P.A.T.H program? The P.A.T.H program is a dynamic partnership between the public schools of Edison Township and Rutgers UBHC, and it's comprised of a team of advanced level clinicians and licensed therapists. So we have a team of licensed psychologists, counselors, and social workers, as well as a child psychiatrist. So our clinicians cover services throughout the 19 schools within the district. And our goal is really to provide services, again, for those that are high risk, those that are in need, those that wouldn't have access otherwise, or those that might be connected but need that extra support within the school. So this gives you an idea of our whole team. We are managed by a program manager, Sonia Marto, and we have 7 clinicians throughout the different schools. So I do carry a full caseload in Edison High School in addition to overseeing the program in Edison. And we have a psychiatrist that's on site in the high schools 4 hours a week, but it's open to all students. So we have students from elementary up who will come to the elementary school to get psychiatric services for free. Okay, some of the services that are provided through our program: we do crisis intervention, we do individual and family therapy, consultation for the schools, case management and referral services. So we're really that liaison, that link between the community provider and the school. We do classroom presentations on topics such as mindfulness, psychoeducation groups, which I'll talk a little more about, and we do programming for the different populations, be it children, parents, and students, staff, sorry about that, which I'll give you some examples of programming that we brought in the past year. And then we also do psychiatric evaluations and medication management. So kids that are connected to medication through our psychiatrist will have that follow-up. So this just gives you a snapshot of the services that we provided in the last school year. So we had 660 students that were referred to us throughout the different schools. You can see that it was predominantly the middle and the high schools. However, I did want to say that we started with the elementary schools in February of this year, so I do expect to see that number increase now that we've had them in the buildings for the full year. And just to give you an idea of the types of symptoms that do come up, you can see that there's a variety of different things. The predominant symptoms that we're seeing, and these are symptoms at admission, so these are how they're referred to us. In the high schools, it's mostly anxiety, depression, difficulty with peer relationships, which you'll see a trend with the difficulty with peer relationships. In the middle school level, it's also the difficulty with peer relationships in addition to self-esteem and anxiety. And in the elementary school, we see a lot of behavioral difficulties as well as self-esteem and the peer relationships as well. And as we know, with our children and adolescents, those relationships that they have with their peers are so important to them. So any difficulties that they have with that, whether it's due to inability to regulate their emotions or their inability to communicate effectively with their peers, it really does affect them, and we're able to support them through that. So some of the environmental stressors that we see, so about 50% of our students have family concerns, and we do provide family services and family therapy, as I mentioned. About 25% have academic difficulties, struggle with academics. About 20% have transition issues, and that can be transitioning from elementary to middle, middle to high, transitioning to in their senior year into college, or also transitions that may happen within a family or within a community. Truancy, which is difficulty with making it into the school building, that's about 5%, and then abuse and neglect, a little less than 5%. So I mentioned crisis responses. I wanted to talk a little bit more about what those are. So we are able to do on-site assessment of students with suicidal or homicidal ideation, so negative thoughts about hurting themselves or others, as well as psychotic symptoms, which would be things like hearing things or seeing things that are not there. And because we're able to do the screenings in a safe environment within the schools, it's much less traumatic for students than having to go into the hospital. And because we work for this large organization, we're able to do direct admissions into the inpatient hospitalization when needed, or make referrals and coordinate other higher level of care, such as partial programs, which I mentioned were those day programs, or intensive outpatient, which is after school about 3 days a week. The other piece that we do in terms of crisis response is we're able to come into a school and bring a team of clinicians and support the students and the teachers if there's a loss in the school. So for example, if there's a loss of a teacher or a loss of a student. So in the past year, we did do 114 crisis assessments. And you can see that it was predominantly in the high school, about 64%, and about 28% in the middle school, and 8% in the elementary, which we would expect. So I mentioned the groups. Some of the groups we offer, we do transition groups for 6th grade and 9th grade over the summer. We also have a senior transition group that we do during their senior year. We run stress management groups, social skills, friendship groups, emotional regulation groups, which is really focused on helping kids to regulate their own emotions as well as building in that interpersonal effectiveness piece. A lot of times when they can't regulate their emotions, they have a hard time communicating their needs effectively, which leads to them getting frustrated. Mindfulness, which is really focused on helping kids to be more present. A lot of times with depression and anxiety, we find that kids are too focused on things that happened in the past or too focused on things that are going to happen in the future. So they're not able to stay present and pay attention and focus on what's going on. So that assists with that. Anger management groups, girl empowerment groups, which are really like self-esteem groups, coping skills groups, as well as grief and loss. So to give you an idea of some of the student programming we did last year, we do an annual wellness fair in one of our buildings in which we invite 20 community vendors. That could be everything from the YMCA to some of the partial programs and IOPs that we would refer to. We bring community providers from outpatient clinics within the area. We bring our hotlines that are in New Jersey. There's an organization called The Second Floor, which is really focused on providing a 24/7 resource for teens and adolescents to just talk about whatever issues. We have them come so that kids are able to put a face with the name when we make these recommendations, and it makes them feel more comfortable. And in addition to that, we bring a yoga instructor and a Zumba instructor who come during their gym classes for the full day. So it's really focused on building physical and mental wellness. Another program that we hosted last year was Sources of Strength. And Sources of Strength is really focused on normalizing health-seeking behaviors. So it really started out as a suicide prevention, but what it does is it helps identify peer leaders throughout the school and helps them to become able to identify their own strengths, and then teaches them how to help their peers to do the same. As we mentioned before, peer relationships are very important to this age group, so they're more likely to go to a peer first than to come to an adult. So by teaching them that help-seeking behavior is okay, it makes it more likely that they'll come seek that support. Coming up for air is a mental health education program that was brought into the high school. A mindfulness classroom presentations we did throughout our elementary schools, and it was 15 to 30-minute presentations that were done for the classrooms from K to 5. And lastly, we started a pilot in one of our middle schools this past year, where we brought 5 to 15 minutes of mindfulness to every single 6th grader. And our clinicians went in and taught it the first day, that Monday, and then we encouraged the teachers to continue with that lesson throughout the week. So by the end of the year, the students had developed a repertoire of about 30 new mindfulness skills. And I'm excited to say that this year we've expanded that. So now in that building, we have every 6th and 7th grader who's receiving mindfulness, and our goal is to be able to expand it throughout the district. Okay, so parent programming. Some of the different programs that we brought last year, we brought the Nurtured Heart approach, which was open to all parents. And this is a program that's really focused on instilling greatness in children by transforming the negative behaviors into positive behaviors. And it also increases that connectivity among family members. And it was actually very well attended. We had over 300 parents come and ask us to bring it back again this year, so I'm hoping to do that. We brought another program through the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, which is promoting success and reducing stress. And it was really focused on helping to educate parents on how to safeguard their children from different mental health needs that may come up. And lastly, Raising Healthy Children in a Healthy World was a program that really talked about the joys and the challenges of parenting and how to raise healthy children in this world. We also brought several school faculty presentations for counselors and child study team, as well as for full faculty. So some of the topics we did were suicide prevention, introduction to mindfulness, dialectic behavior therapy skills, or DBT, is pretty much, again, focused on that emotional regulation and interpersonal effectiveness. And part of it, the distress tolerance skills, are how to help children regulate within the classroom. So it taught the teachers different strategies that they can use right in the classroom if kids are having a hard time regulating. We mentioned the nurtured heart approach, which not only is it effective for families, it's also effective for teachers by helping them to build up the positive characteristics that they want to see increase in children. Current drug trends, and for the full faculty, we brought in the ACEs presentation. And what ACEs is, it's a study that was done that really focused on how childhood stressors can continue to impact us into adulthood. So by being able to recognize the impact of trauma and teaching teachers how to support kids who experience trauma within the classroom, it encourages them to want to be in school, and it helps them to feel supported. Okay, so we mentioned outcomes. So the way that we measure outcomes, we use the behavior assessment scale for children. We typically will use the self-report form, but we also have a parent report form. So we do this for pre and post data, so we're able to show the child and the parent individually the progress that they've made, and it also helps us to identify areas of concern initially. So some of the school-related outcomes that we've seen are decreased disciplinary referrals, increased school performance, increased school attendance, and improved social and emotional functioning. So ultimately, if we're openly discussing mental health from primary all the way up to high school, we can ensure that our children know how to reach out and seek help before tragedies occur. As Frederick Douglass said, it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men and women. Thank you. I'll take any questions now. Anybody has any questions?
Questions?
Yeah.
Yes, nowadays we have a lot of kids with this mental health issues, and it's a great program.
Thank you.
So I missed the one part you mentioned, the end of 660. What period is this?
That was for last calendar year, so
Last
from
calendar.
2016 to 2017.
Okay. So you also mentioned there's these parent programs that, 3 parent programs here.
Mm-hmm.
These are conducted on the weekends or?
They're during the week in the evenings.
Okay.
And it was 3 programs, but we did host some of them more than once. So across the span of the year, I think we did about 6 parent presentations. So we did them in the evenings, usually about 7 or 7:30. And we tried to vary the building that they're in so that more parents have access to them.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Now,
Yeah.
now this is a program from K through 12?
Yeah.
Do we have any plans on doing something for pre-K?
So we've supported the pre-K during traumatic responses as needed. We're definitely open to that if the need arises, and if that support is needed, we can absolutely talk about that.
Okay. Now, if they needed the support, they can come to someone within the district?
Yeah, so right now we have 7 clinicians across 19 schools, so we're already very spread thin.
Mm-hmm.
So bringing it into the preschool on a more regular basis would probably need
Right.
additional support, but it's definitely something we could look into.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
One last question. So, we're conducting all these programs in the school setting. Is there any consideration of taking these programs outside school, like in the communities, community settings, meet the community, those kind of a setting can bring these programs there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could definitely look into that. I know in JP Stevens last year we were talking about that. It just didn't work out timing-wise in terms of one of the communities, the Minnieville Center. So that was one thing that we talked about.
Okay.
So there's always opportunities for expanding the programming.
Thank you.
Sure.
And just one thing.
Sure.
So it's nice to see kind of, the people, the students being referred, but it'll also be nice to see at the end of the year, how did the kind of a caseload kind of went down? Like, what was the success rate? I'm sure it's very successful, and we'll probably not see any of these bars or, but it'll be nice to see that as well.
Sure. That's definitely something we can look to do. Yeah.
We also service the teachers now. I think we've expanded
Absolutely.
to include with 1,300 teachers, and then staff people too, a lot more, hundreds of staff people. So, and certainly all of us have personal problems and all kinds of problems in today's world. So So I think this is a terrific thing for the staff and for the teachers.
Absolutely.
And just one more thing, like how do you identify the kids? I mean, do you have kids coming by themselves?
So yeah, now that we're about our 5th year in, we do have kids that we've seen in previous years who will refer themselves, and we'll let the parents know. We have parents that call us directly who may have heard of us from another parent or from the counselor. We have counselors refer to us directly. Administration will refer to us directly. So it's pretty widespread. More recently, we've been getting referrals from other community providers, so like Mobile Response, or an inpatient may call us and say, hey, I heard you have this program in the schools. And so we've been getting referrals from a lot of different areas, but kids are referring themselves, which is fantastic.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Appreciate
Thank
it. Very good.
I think she had a question. Elizabeth had a question. Did you have a
Okay.
question?
Someone in the audience had a question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As she's coming up, I
have to get out to my car.
As she's coming up, I just want to recognize
I don't know how
Dr.
to-
Brungard from Edison High School and Brian Glassberg, both our guidance supervisors, as well as Deborah Gulick, who came this evening to support, and they do a lot of relationship building with them, so I wanted to let them know and thank them for coming tonight to
Just two quick
support.
questions. Elizabeth Conway, 20 Netherwood Circle. Since this is a joint effort between Rutgers and Edison, who is actually funding this?
I can answer for you. The Edison Board of Education funds it to approximately $775,000 a year.
Very good. And my second question is, if a child is referred to you, do you have to get special written permission from a parent prior to, since you are not a direct Edison employee?
Yes, absolutely.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yeah. Just come up to the microphone, please.
Antonia Rosigliano, 261 West Hagel Avenue, Edison. I have a question. Actually, my first question was the funding one. But another question, do you find that, obviously, we know our schools are overcrowded. Have you found, in your 5 years within the district, that the overcrowding has affected children, anxiety, and other problems that have arisen? That's number one.
Before, if you could just come up when you answer so we can hear you on the microphone.
And how problematic is the bullying problem? In my several years on this earth, I found that bullying is a big thing, and I think boys have the name, but I think girls play the game. Having 6 daughters and only 3 sons, I think I might have, none of my daughters were bullies. I will say that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
All right, so to address your first question about the overcrowding, we haven't found that the anxiety has increased over the past 5 years, so I don't know that there's a direct link. We have found that the number of referrals has increased, but I think that's more so due to families recognizing that we're there and that we are a resource that's available to them. So I don't know if there's a direct link to the overcrowding with the anxiety. We do see kids that have anxiety. We do see kids who have school avoidance, and we are supporting them. What the cause of that is, they haven't identified that as being the reason. So I'm not sure if that's contributing to it. In terms of the bullying, I know it's definitely a concern. I know that the schools have been doing a great job of addressing it. Having us there has just been that extra support. So administrators will bring us into situations where they're concerned about these things as the support. So we are not involved in doing the investigations or identifying whether or not it's bullying. The school handles that very well. We then come in and we're able to support both the bully and the child being bullied, which has been great. Because a lot of the times we find that the kids that are doing the bullying have concerns of their own. Kids who are able to do that kind of harm to another person are dealing with their own concerns. So we're able to really get both sides connected, which has definitely been a plus. Does that answer your question? Okay, great, thank you. Any other parent questions? And I'm inside of the Edison High School, so please feel free to contact me directly if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving along. Thank you again. It was a great presentation. We get this presentation, or usually the committee for the board gets it. And I thought this year was a nice way for the full board and the public to see what they present to us every year. So I think it's a lot of information. Some of it's pretty staggering given the numbers that you see, but with the board's support, we've been able to add additional services on throughout. So I think we've got it well machine and something that's been replicated around the state from what we've done here in Edison. So thank you again. So moving on to letter B, which is our goals for 2017-2018. There are 3 of them, and I think it's reflected in our conversations that we had in our board retreat in June. So I'll leave it open for any board members to want to address any of the goals.
I just have a question on the math and language arts goal, to increase numbers and decrease numbers in the lower tiers. Are the standards going to change at all, or are the standards going to stay exactly how we have them now? I'm sorry.
No? Sure. I'm going to have Deborah
Sure.
Skulik address it. She's our chief academic officer and the secretary who sort of helped devise the goal.
So the criteria, we're looking at the criteria to make sure all of the students who can handle the academic standards in the class are being addressed. So our criteria has changed slightly, but the rigor of the class has not.
So the criteria meaning that you can get into an honors or advanced class with a less of a grade.
We're looking at more measures, a more diverse group of measures, and that was just implemented this year. So we're very interested in our first quarter grades to make sure that we're maintaining that level of success.
One of the other things, if you recall, we did some summer programs to sort of help students get that extra push to get into those higher level classes as well. So that's sort of what we've also initiated to help that as well.
Okay.
And I just wanted to say something. So this was actually when we had the last Curriculum and Technology Committee meeting, this was brought up around that time, where we thought that, children typically rise to the challenges that are given to them. And so middle school is kind of a time to experiment and, challenge them as much, because they can falter, they can fall. But then once they get into high school, we need to know where they stand, because then they can't make mistakes, because that GPA counts, it goes into, so that was part of the reason why we talked, and we thought that, that just to kind of give them more exposure, challenge the kids more.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and part of that was the conversation about starting in middle school, to start there, to begin to push, and then as they get into high school, also have more opportunities for them. But we wanted to start in middle school.
And not to cut them early on, just keep challenging them. Pushing them, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions on any of the goals? Yes, yeah, I have some questions on that first goal, to actively address the overcrowding issue and improve the quality of education at Edison Public Schools by developing a plan, respective budget, and timeline for referendum that will specifically add additional facilities and classroom space to alleviate overcrowding throughout the district. It's very general, and I guess at this point it has to be, because there's so many buildings that we need, so many additional buildings, that we can't really specify which is the one that is most needed. But just looking at some of the enrollment statistics, if we go back to, well, even John Marshall this year in the elementary school has 843 students. Lincoln has 831 students. And Woodrow Wilson has 1192, almost 1,200 students in the middle school. And there's also what's, I don't want to say frightening, but rising enrollment over the next 3 or 4 years that will be going into particularly JP, where there's there should be in the 6th grade now, there's about 751. So if that cohort goes into the 9th grade, it's going to substantially increase at about another 60 or 70. And the cohorts in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade now, when they move into the JP, even with the students we have, and assuming there's not another student enrolling the next summer in Edison School District, it's going to get larger. So I mean, there's an incredible need for schools across the district. I mean, I don't know how we're going to fund it unless we really get some legislative intervention. Mayor Sigliano, maybe you can help us out.
I'm a former mayor.
Oh,
I have no authority.
Right, but if there's any help that we can get, I mean, God forbid, raising taxes that much to pay for multiple buildings. We have also the special education, which I want to emphasize. In pre-K, it's the worst, and that's rising across even the state. And we're experiencing that. We need a special building just for the special education alone, besides elementary schools and middle schools and at least one more high school. So, too bad I won't be young enough to help you through this, but it's really, I don't know if we should specify even 5-year facilities plan along with that or anything else, but I guess we have to leave it somewhat general. I know I'd spoken to Dr. O'Malley about this. And on the other one, the third goal, I just mentioned that to improve communication and understanding with the Edison Public Schools community and staff by conducting a survey to gather stakeholder perspectives, I would add there, of students, staff, and parents regarding progress made on district goals and priorities as measured by survey, whereby we solicit feedback and improve communication culture through the use of surveys and focus meetings. Maybe we can tighten that language up a little bit, but even to specify who is going to do it, if we have focus groups, to even have a broader community that might be involved in that too. So that's the only thing I have.
The focus groups would be around those three that we talked about: staff, students, and parents, just to ascertain a little bit better if the survey came back that it was a little skewed one way or other. It's trying to get some more information in a small group than just saying people have filled it out. So those focus groups are around those three groups that we've targeted: staff, parents, and students. So that's where the focus groups will be.
Okay, that's all for me.
Yeah, what is the, do you have a timeline that when these surveys going to go out?
So we are going to do them in order of parents first, students second, and then staff. And the parent one is scheduled to be within the 2-week period. I think everyone saw that. So it'll be launched in about 2 weeks, maybe earlier. And then we expect about a 2-week time frame to get some results back. Simultaneously, when that one launches, we'll start the one with the students and kind of have it flowing. So within this fall sort of semester time frame, we should have all three of them conducted, and then hopefully do a follow-up. We'll have a presentation, see what the action plans may be, and then a follow-up to see if anything that we've done actually worked in our follow-up.
So these surveys are completely anonymous, right? None of those people will be identified.
Surveys are anonymous. It goes to email addresses. It would go, and it's so that one person can only take it in a household. And they actually will fill out based upon your oldest child. So if you have 4 children in the district, you'd fill it out based upon your oldest child, because they're trying to ascertain the experience of a parent maybe throughout their term rather than not just one child in the district. Okay, any other questions on the goals? All right. Next, we have the Week of Respect, which was October 2nd through the 6th, and then School Violence Awareness Week, which is the 23rd to the 27th. In the board's package, you have a list of all the activities throughout the district and all the schools to accommodate those two recognized areas. Then on item D is American Education Week, which is November 13th through 17th, our annual resolution to support that. Moving on, we have 2 agreements. One is a memorandum agreement with the ice hockey tri-jointure, I guess, Metuchen, Edison High, and J.P. Stevens. So no changes from last year. And then also our YMCA swim team contracts for both Edison High and J.P. Stevens, same as last year, if I'm correct, Mr. Michaud, for both of those. So no changes, but just our annual contracts for some of our winter sports.
Dr. O'Malley, real quick, each high school will have their own swim team?
Yes.
Or dive team competition?
They do.
Okay, thank you.
and they have grown tremendously over the years. We started off Edison High, J.P. Stevens had about 23, and Edison High had somewhere in the teens, and I think Edison High is just as large now, if
40.
Almost 40. So
Wow.
they have definitely grown in over the years. And then finally, item G is the appointment of Mrs. Maroney to the Ed Service Commission of New Jersey. Dr. Heelan will be stepping down, and Ms. Maroney will be taking his spot. So she did win her first election, I will tell her this evening. not the one she was looking for, but that's fine.
Have a short term.
Moving on to curriculum instruction, we have 7 field trips, no cost to the board, and 1 instructional day lost for each of them, and then our professional development, if anybody has any questions on any of those 2 items. And then finally, moving on to out-of-district placements, we have, looks like there's 5 of them, 2 of them returning or terminated, and then 3 students going out of district for this month. If no one has any questions along those, that would conclude my report, Dr. Heelan.
Okay, and let's see, next, Mr. Michaud.
Okay, thank you.
Business report.
If you turn to your investment report, you'll see that for the month of September, we received interest of in the amount of $18,344. That brings our annual amount up from July 1st through September 30th up to $55,339 total. The next 6 pages is the Board Secretary's report for the financials for August 31st of 2017, followed by the Treasurer's for Monies report, which is also for the same period of time. Following that are the resolutions that will be presented for Monday night's approval. The first one, this one is a requirement from the local fire department where they're requesting or requiring us to put emergency lighting at all of our exit doors of our schools, which are specifically for when power goes out, they automatically go on. It's for safety and it's for security of the staff and students, just in case that night the power goes out and they have to leave whatever exits from the school they are in. But we have 331 doors, and we got a proposal for $157,000 from one of our vendors that we had on bid. And because we didn't bid that, and I don't have the money in the budget for that, we're asking for the county office to give us approval to use some of our emergency reserve. You can use emergency reserve for health and safety or security. So we're asking for permission to do that, but I need board resolution approving the submission to the county office for that. So we're asking for that on Monday night. Second item is this is the FCCLA grant that we get annually. It's in the amount of $146,500, same as last year. We just need board approval to accept those funds for this year. Next item is a grant which we've been receiving for several years now. It's the Special Olympics Play Unified Grant for $10,000. That's Mr. Conklin handles this one for us. It's for Special Olympics for special education students. And it's worked out very well, and we're trying to get even more students involved. Item number 4 is a bid for masonry repairs and maintenance services. We had 3 bidders, and the one that won the bid is GSP Properties out of Metuchen. We haven't dealt with them before, but they won the bid, and we checked on them. They look like a quality company, and hopefully they're going to work out well. The next bid was for roof maintenance and leak repairs. This one we've had in the past. We had 4 bidders. 1 withdrew their bid, but the low bidder is Pat Wood Roofing. We've had them for several years. They do a great job for us, so we're very happy to see that they won that again. Item number 6 is a resolution that pretty much every district in the state is trying to push through. The state, for whatever reason, and they can't even explain why, are trying to change the way that we reimburse the food service company for lunches. Right now, it's been on a reimbursement level, and of course, we tell them we want good quality food, and we reimburse them based on that food. They want to go to a fixed price. When you go to a fixed price, you give them so much per meal. Now they can buy the cheapest stuff, and they make more money. And everybody's up in arms about this. When I had my ASBO meeting, there was a convention down in Atlantic City, and this was one of the conferences with the state representatives, and everybody was livid. And they could not explain why they're doing it, and all we said to them is, give us an opportunity to go either one. Don't require us to go with this run. If somebody wants to do it, let them do it. But if you want to stay on the one we're on, which has been working for years, we want to do that. So what happened was the New Jersey ASBO has sent out this resolution to every district, and is looking for every district to support this, to try to get this to the state, and at least give us the option of staying on the one that's we're working on now. and it works out well, and it's going to be worked out much better for the quality of food that kids are getting now compared to a fixed price. So we're going to ask for board approval on that on Monday night. Item number 7, the non-public nursing money, which is state money that we receive from the state for the non-public schools in district. We are required to approve what schools they are. Now we have, if you'll see on the number 7, you'll see there are 18 non-public schools that we have currently in Edison are funded by this grant. The Ed Service Commission of New Jersey actually does all the work for us. We pay them out of the state money, and the services they provide are listed on, there's 5 different things they have to do for us, and we just get billed from them. They provide the service, and we just reimburse them. Item number 8 is the list of obsolete items we received from several of the schools. We'd like to have those declared obsolete so we can have those disposed of. Item number 9 is the bill list for the month of September in the amount of $22,218,000. Everyone received a copy of the bill list, and anybody who has a question about anything on there, please give me a call. And the last item is a very lengthy transportation report, and there's a reason for that, because back in August, when we renewed it, the state tells us how much the CPI is that we're allowed to increase the routes by every year. And this year it was 0.3%. But when we did it back in August, the calculation was through at 3%. So we're rescinding all of those and redoing them at 0.3%, which we did get approval from our 2 biggest vendors, which is Bapper and Barker. So, but we need to have this because we have to send this to the county office along with the contracts, and it has to match those, obviously. So we're sending all of the routes that we renewed at 3% back in August and re-approving them at 0.3% this month, so we can send the contracts down. And that concludes my report, Dr. Hill.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Michaud. And now we have board members' open discussion. I have a few things. Well, Beth, did you have anything?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay.
I don't have anything tonight.
I'm sure you will before we finish up this. But just a few things I have. Band Festival at JP was held October 1st, and I know Ralph Errico and Beth were there, and myself, and we're glad to see that Edison High School came out with all of the superior honors that did very well out of about 12 different band schools. So congratulations to Edison High School, and then also just mention that in the JP, Elizabeth Yu from JP won the first singles in tennis and also JP won the GMC tournament for the 2nd time in a row. So the girls' tennis is really superlative. And also just mention the cute program I thought of, Shally Lee from 8th grader from TJ doing a little free pantry inspired by the teacher Andrew Liss. Take what you need and give what you can. And it's a little box in front of the school, so they put in different items that are non-perishable items that people who need it could just go up and take it. And if you want to put something in, you can. And then also I'd mention that we had a wonderful Sukkot yesterday at Neve Shalom. They invited us to it. It's one that's open to everybody, and it's like a tent festival or a harvest festival for the harvest season, almost like a Thanksgiving. And they invited some of the political officials, and Senator Dykeman was there, and some of the council people, and so it was a nice event. And then finally, I'd mention the National Merit 2018 semifinalists, and we're very happy to say, Dr. O'Malley, that we have JP came out among the high schools. If you go by high schools, came out first in Central Jersey, and probably got over 10% of all of those in Central Jersey, I guess. And Edison High School got 2 as well. But so they got 27, and unfortunately Princeton only got 24. And then East Brunswick and West Windsor South were tied as individual schools for 18. They got 18. And if you go by district, then we were tied with West Windsor, because they have the West Windsor South and North. When you combine the 2 of them, they had 29, as we did too. So so it did extraordinarily well in the National Merit 2018 semifinalists. Just like to congratulate all the wonderful
teachers and parents and the terrific students that they give us. So it's really a very, very good sign. And then also, I'd just finally like to mention that there are classes that are over, that are more than what we want, 29, 30, 31 generally. And in JAMS, there's 37 classes that are at that level, 59 in Woodrow Wilson, 30 in JP, 19 in Edison High School, 1 in Herbert Hoover. So just to be aware of some of the problems that we have to cope with, because just no more buildings, and it's something that we will have to be dealing with. Okay, and that concludes any other board members who would like to? Oh, yeah, Ralph?
Yes, also I'd like to mention the marching band competition at J.P. Stevens. I know Jerry Shee was there as well as Frank and Beth, and Mr. Brescher, I believe, was there. Jerry and I stayed to give out some awards at the end. It was an excellent competition. It was amazing to see the progress, because I went to the Edison High competition as well as Mr. Shee, and we were speaking about it, how much that the bands have improved over time, and the performance has just gotten better and better every time. Also, we attended last night, Shivy, Jerry, someone else, Shannon was there. We honored as Mr. Brown from Edison High School, the chorus teacher, as the Teacher of the Year by the Chamber of Commerce. And then the Odyssey of the Mind from J.P. Stevens was also honored for being world champions. So again, that was a nice little function to attend and see how well our teachers and our students are doing within the district. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the board? Okay, Mr. Brescher.
Yeah, when I was listening to Dan before, we were talking about the emergency lights that we have to put in.
Yeah.
If we ever get this whole maintenance plan and facilities plan, like we used to have, that can be put in there and can be done over like a couple-year period, and the state is okay with that. So it's even though we didn't have it budgeted, we can do that over time. And the plan is good, because I looked at our old plan. It showed that we had the enrollment we have today is what was projected back then. So it might not have happened in the exact year that it happened, but the actual document does show that, our enrollment growing to the nature that it is today. So if we had a new one, it would give us a very good idea of what we need to plan for in the future,
Yeah, we actually are working on that right now. We're trying to put together a 5-year plan. We already have some of the aspects of it already ready to go. We still have some other things to work on. But we did discuss about possibly doing this over time, but since we have the emergency reserve and it can only be used for these specific purposes, we felt we might as well, let's get this thing done. We already have the proposal for it. We can get it all done now, and I can always replenish that emergency reserve later.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, now we'll go on to the public comments. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, and please go up to the microphone, give your name and address. Yeah.
Good evening, Sunil Robert, 90 Gatehouse Lane. My ears perked up as soon as the word goals and goals ahead were mentioned. I'm kind of curious to just make a couple of observations and just get some responses, particularly on the perception survey and the research that you're kind of delving into. I just want to know, what are some of the end goals you have in mind, and how are you going to measure some of these responses? In the corporate world, anytime we do this, we usually try and bring in a third party to interpret that data for us and give us some kind of a data which speaks for itself, as opposed to us putting our spin or interpretation on it. So I'm just curious to see how you're structuring, or what's your research methodology looking like in the way you're approaching this 3 phases that you're going out to do. And I'm not sure how, once the email is used as the primary trigger, that anonymity part kind of comes into a little bit of a question. So I'm curious about that as well. So that's one. And on the other item that where 157,000 are, we just I'm curious to see if there's a competitive bidding involved, or it's just one window, one proposal based on which we are making recommendations for those emergency lights. So these two are my questions, and I'd like some responses, please.
Why don't you go first?
Well, as far as the 157 goes, the company that actually gave us the proposal is one of the bidders that our bidding consultant has awarded as a statewide company. Doesn't mean we're not going to get additional quotes, but I would have to either put an actual bid out, a formal bid, if I want to do that for $157,000. Our bid limit is $40,000. But if I go with a state contract or one of our cooperative bidding consultants, which is Educational Data is, I can just get a price from them because it's already been bid by them, and it's a statewide. They have over 200 districts in theirs, so it's a combined amount for that type of service, and then they award it, and we're able to then use those vendors without additional bidding. But I will be looking into, I just want to make sure that that number is right, so I will be getting additional pricing, but I needed to get a number so I can go to the county office and ask them for permission to use that emergency reserve.
Okay, and then your first question was about the survey. So we've contracted with a company called K-12 Insight. They do surveys all across the United States with school districts, and so they'll be able to handle some of those intricacies that you're concerned about, how they do it electronically. We're going to do it in 5 languages as well. They'll also do some paper and pencil for some people who do not want to do it electronically, also in those 5 languages. And they will be the one to extract the data from the surveys, and they will be the ones that will present to the board the findings that the board will get. They'll put into a presentation. And they sort of worked with us to try to make sure that some of the questions are actionable and not just perception questions, because that was one of the things going into the surveys is, can we adjust and then re-survey people later on, whether it's the spring. They want to push for the following fall, but I think if we have some actionable questions that we can respond to. Did that kind of address some of the questions you had? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public? Yes. Spadowski.
Carol Badowski, 39 Jonathan Drive. I'd like to thank Dr. O'Malley and the board for sharing Dr. Millar's presentation with all of us tonight, the P.A.T.H program that Rutgers makes available to our students. According to NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, mental health conditions are common among teens and young adults. 1 in 5 live with a mental health issue. For some, experiencing the first signs can be scary and confusing. Discussing what you're going through with others is an important first step in getting help. Speaking up and asking for help is a sign of strength. You will be amazed by the support you get by simply asking. Having these people in the school gets that message across to the students. A mental health condition, this is an important message that they can get across to the students, that a mental health condition is not your fault or your family's fault. It develops for complicated reasons that researchers are just starting to understand. You have the power to take the steps necessary to improve your mental health. And one of the messages that went along with what she said that I just saw in a social work bulletin today is when I becomes we, illness becomes wellness. Emotional wellness equals academic success, as she said. And I just had one other thing I wanted to mention. When we've had a lot of talk about raising money for the district, grant writing, and things like that, Farmers Insurance is running a campaign to thank America's teachers with $100,000 grants to help their classes. Laura, and I may get her last name wrong, Holbrough, a science teacher at J.P. Stevens High School, has submitted a grant entitled Lighting the Way to Better Food. This project is designed to purchase solar panels to make the greenhouse on the student farm able to grow food all year. The greenhouse is paired with a farm stand selling produce to local families and the overflow going to local food banks. And there's a link on the Edison Public Schools website where it tells how you can vote in this contest. until October 28th, I believe it is. She needs at least 300,000 votes in order for her project to be considered for winning. And we all talk about finding new ways to finance and support student learning, and here's one example, and it's not going to cost the district anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Redneck?
Matt Revnack, First Vice President ETA. I just want to jump on what Cal just mentioned. In addition to Laura Harborough, there's also Amanda Copeland, who's up for the $2,500 award. So there's actually two of them. You can vote at literally on the same link for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Conley.
Elizabeth Conway, 20 Netherwood Circle. Usually they say if it's on the internet, it must be true. So I figured I would call and ask to get more information about tomorrow night. The Indian Business Association is holding a back-to-school night in Edison. It's a seminar series to be held at John Adams starting at 6 o'clock tomorrow night. And I was wondering if I see Jerry Shee and Shivy and Paul and Beth. Your pictures are on here. Could you enlighten us as to what's involved with this? And it says it's a series.
Yeah, let me answer that.
Excuse me, did you want to say anything on this?
I can answer that. Yeah. So this Indian Business Association approached me and asked me if I would, that they would organize this event, and that if I could come there and just answer questions that parents might have. So,
and where is this Indian Association from?
I don't know where it is from. Anybody who will invite me for education-related events, it doesn't matter who they are. If I'm free, I will go.
But it's being held at John Adams Middle School?
Yeah, so you should talk to the Indian Business Association.
Well, I actually responded. I'm going to go tomorrow night because I was interested in seeing what it was about.
Yeah, so it's basically supposed to be, I'm glad you brought it up because a lot of people will see it now, and this will be like a commercial for the event. It's basically everybody, any Edison resident is welcome to come there, but it's basically for parents. And students, if they want, to have, because even not a lot of parents can come for these board meetings, and that, as far as I understand, the reason for this event, and so there, without having all the work of the board, you can just have kind of a question-answer session.
Okay, it did say that you had to RSVP, but will people be able to just walk in?
I'm a panelist. I'm not the person organizing the event, so I'm one of the panelists.
Okay, and then my last question, I'm always asking about money, if you notice that. Will this association be paying a rental fee to use the facility tomorrow night?
I'm sure they would be paying.
Yeah, they fill
they should be paying.
Yeah, they fill out an application for building use.
They did?
Now, the custodians are already there till 11:30, so generally, if there's already something going on a weeknight, we don't charge it for the custodians, but they usually pay the fee for the facilities.
And that's already in place?
Yes.
Okay. I look forward to it. And Dr. O'Malley, you're the keynote speaker, I see.
Should be a wonderful event.
And it says it's a series, so that means there's going to be more than one?
I think once every quarter, I guess.
I think what they talked about is that they want the more access to Dr. O'Malley. So I think the plan is, based on my understanding, the conversation with them is more of a meet the community event. So they plan to probably have at least 2-3 per school year.
Okay, and I noticed there's only 4 of you, and is that done on purpose because 5 can't go together?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what.
So will other board members be taking turns at future events?
We haven't been asked. In fact, it hasn't gone through the whole board. It's just a group that has done this.
You're the boss!
I know. Well, Jeff Bowden actually told me at the candidates' night. I was
it's my understanding that it will.
Wait, everybody needs to listen.
It was apparently on Facebook, but I'm not a non-Facebook person, and I don't put my face on.
It's my understanding that it is supposed to rotate members of the board, that this is going to be, as Shivy said, a quarterly event, And I certainly would want other members of the board to get up and, you know, be in front of the public so the public can get to know our opinions and maybe give us some good suggestions like you do, you know? So.
But you instigated it, so we can.
Instigated it.
If it's good, you get to get
Initiate.
tapped on the shoulder, and if it's a bomb, you get blamed.
See, it doesn't even matter whether it's good or bad. Even if I can answer the question of one parent and make one parent happy, my work is done, you know. So it's about just being accessible. As board members, we need to be accessible to the public, and this is one of a very nice way to kind of be accessible to anybody and everybody in Edison. So anybody who has the time and can make it, it's going to be great.
Okay, so it's tomorrow night, 6 o'clock at John Adams Middle School, and anybody can, well.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm an invitee, so I don't know. So, you know, all the kind
I'm just going by what I had seen.
You should, if there is an email, you should just, you know, email them.
Well, no, I'm just saying if anybody sees it tonight and they're interested, they can just walk in tomorrow night.
I don't know about walk-ins because I think that has an email because.
You did have to respond.
Yeah.
So that's why I was wondering if it's going to be a limited amount of people.
Yeah,
there.
I don't know. I'm not aware of any housekeeping issues. Just I'm one of the panelists. I'm one of the invitees along with, you know, 3 other people. So
it's you, Mr. Shi, Mr. DiStefano, and Mrs. Marino.
Yeah. I think Ralph will also be there, but in the audience. Next time I'll be in the audience and Ralph will be the panelist.
Is that an invite?
Just kidding.
Very good.
You have something to say?
Well, I was going to say, I'm going to say that they're going to speak as like individuals, not as board members.
Absolutely.
You know, up there.
Yeah.
So it's like not a conflict.
Well, it should be interesting to see, you know, it is a series, so I'd like to, is there like a theme for each evening?
Can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just saying, so since it's saying it's a series, there'll be a number of them, and will there be like a theme? Like we're going to talk about certain things this go-round, we'll talk about something else, or are you going to go by Dr. O'Malley's keynote speech and take it from there?
I think it's question answers.
Well, I guess this is based on how they organize it. If you want to know the details, you contact the organization that organizes it.
Well, I'm coming tomorrow night and I'll find out.
Welcome.
Ms. Conway, if I could just step in and say something, I just want to make sure it's very clear. This is, and maybe I'm asking this question, but this is not a Board of Education event, correct, Mr. Michaud?
That's correct.
Okay, so this is an event that's organized by a private organization that's rented this out, but of course, the board members, at least I've heard a couple themes here before I stepped in. I want to make sure any board member who speaks obviously knows better and needs to make sure they say this is their own opinion, it's not the opinion of the board, or at least you have to have the moderator say that and you can all nod your heads. You want to keep yourselves out of trouble in that regard, and you certainly don't want a quorum of board members participating in a single conversation because that won't end up being the Indian Business Association's problem. That'll end up being our problem as a board. So we got to be careful about that. Okay, those are 2 things I just want to make sure I mention to you.
Okay. Dr. Hill?
I can go now.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that you know, I've been invited by this organization to speak at other events, and I have gone as an individual, not so much. I think there was an event that they asked me to speak about being an elementary or a former high school assistant principal and a board member, what I knew about college applications and things like that, how to get into colleges and things. So I think the concept of what they're doing is very good. I've spoken to Shivy about this. I think it's a great idea that we make this a series, maybe once a quarter, maybe once every 4 or 5 months. And if the IBA or whoever is running an event like this wants to invite whoever they want to invite, they invite who they want to invite. And and we speak like you just said, Jonathan, as individuals, not representing the board.
Definitely.
So, I think I'm going to try to be there and see how it goes. And Dr. O'Malley, I think, should be the keynote speaker at every one.
My only point is that all board members should be informed of what's going on. That's all.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yes. Okay.
A very small concern. Sunil Robert, 90 Gatehouse Lane. A very small concern around the Woodbrook Elementary School construction area. Since school began, I've been helping with the safety patrol, and between 8:40 and 9 o'clock, some of the construction vehicles are creating a problem in that little narrow Robin Lane. And oftentimes, much to our dismay of the staff members who are helping around, no matter how polite and how persuasive we are, we're not able to make any headway. What vehicles are coming in, oftentimes blocking, oftentimes creating, they're supersized vehicles, some of these. So just within that window of 30 minutes, if we could work with the construction firms and persuade them to either get in earlier and get out after 9, it'll alleviate a lot of problems.
Yeah, I think we could share that. We have these construction meetings weekly, and so we can make sure that can get addressed.
Again, it's because we've tried to speak with some of those vehicle drivers, and we've not had much success.
And just to say, after the construction of Jameson Row, sometimes it's not necessarily the construction crew, it's the other subcontractors, the other deliveries that cause the problem. So we'll do our best to share that with, but we've had some issues with not necessarily the construction company because they've done a fantastic job so far. So, but we'll reiterate your concerns on that time period as well.
The perception of the public is that it's causing problems, so I just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Mr. Brennan?
Bill Brunner, 215 Loring Avenue. I want to thank the ETEA for inviting me to the candidates night. It was very informative. I hadn't been to one run by them. Excellent moderator. The theme by all the candidates, the basic theme about overcrowding was prevalent amongst all their conversations. And I was wondering, have we hired any professional engineers to examine all of the schools to see if they're strong enough to build up? I say that because, frankly, in the last several years, I think the town council, or the town in general, is giving us lip service. I can't see them dedicating any land, even if it was available, and there's not much land available in Edison. They seem to favor the developers. Developers bring ratables in, schools don't. So I can't see us getting any major land, even if it was available. But hiring engineers to make sure that you can go up, because I think that's the only way you're going to expand the schools enough to help the overcrowding is to go up.
Right. We have Land Associates. Ken Call is spearheading for us a study right now. We're looking at the land between JP and John Adams, and they call it wetlands.
Yeah, it is wetlands. Yes.
You can always use it.
JP was built on wetlands.
Just about every school in the town is built on wetlands. So, but now it seems to be a bigger problem. So to use that, and it must be close to 80 acres. So we do have somebody studying what can be done, the possibilities of that. Across the street from New Dover Road, across from John Adams Middle School too, there's also Green Acres that Mayor Spadoro had apparently put aside, as well as many other places, as Green Acres. And it's almost pretty impossible in speaking to some of the councilmen and some of the politicians to undo that, but we would like to undo it if we could. There's even less wetlands there and a good amount of acreage there. So I mean, that's one thing that we are looking at, but we do have and we are looking to build up on J.P. Stevens, and that's one consideration that we're looking at too, a second floor in different areas.
And another item, I remember when Dr. O'Malley first brought up the Chromebook concept and it was adopted. I asked at the time, because I understood that the kids could take the Chromebooks home, and even if they went on vacation out of the country, they could take them with them. And I asked who was going to be responsible for the loss of a Chromebook or the damage to a Chromebook, et cetera. And he said, well, the parents were going to try to get compensation back from the parents of the child. And I was wondering how that has worked out over the years, because teachers I've talked to have told me some horror stories about those Chromebooks, aside from just being filthy, dirty, but also malfunctioning. Have we been able to recoup any monies from the parents of the children, or have we just absorbed all the costs ourselves?
So in the first year, I'd say we absorbed the cost in the first year because they were new, and since then we've had insurance that parents have had to purchase, which takes care of some of the larger expenses. But things like keyboard issues, they seem to be absorbed by the district. We kind of take care of those kinds of things. But larger insurance issues, cracked screens we even take care of because it's a little bit less expensive if we do it, but other damage we send out and is covered by insurance.
That we, insurance that we pay for?
No, the parents pay for.
Oh, the parents pay for it? Oh, good. Thank goodness for that. But anyway, yeah, I think with the expansion, I don't see building on wetlands. And the Green Acres thing, I brought that up myself because an even bigger area is down in South Edison, over by just past Woodbridge Center, May Street. There's a park down there that's not used.
Two-Dash Park?
Yeah, exactly.
And they used to have a school building there.
Yeah,
before they
precisely. And it's a nice, big, wide open area, but it's Green Acres. And the governments they're not going to let us build on Green Acres. That's a pipe dream. So I really think we're just going to have to go up, and we've got to make sure that the buildings are built strong enough to take a second story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just want to add what you just mentioned about building up. As we discussed it in our committee as well, but I think some of the teachers who work in who worked in the Menlo Park and the Woodbrook will tell you the experiences. Even the construction is going on, they're not going up. There's still a lot of noises and make the class education a little bit harder. Just thinking about, you have a level of classes going on, you bang on top of the roof, how practical that is. And we all know when you do something, you can't get it done in the whole summer. It stretch a little bit long. So that's, again, something that we have considered as well. So when we heard a lot about, building up, but this is something that real concern that the impact of the teaching when the construction is going on.
Yes, I can see that. Obviously, it would cause a lot of problems. By the way, one other thing, with the problems that JP is going to have, because they're increasing more and more as student population. How about redistricting? Because I think Edison High School could probably take on a few more than they've got, and I think maybe redistricting some of those students that are going to JP, send them to Edison High School, because the idea of building a third high school is also, that's even going to take more space than a grammar school.
Mr. Brunner, I just want to reflect on one thing regarding the Chromebooks, just to straighten out one thing. So you mentioned children taking them out of the country. So when we were doing negotiations with the teachers union recently, the board learned that those machines are collected before every major vacation. So the kids, not to say that a kid may go on a vacation with a family during the school term, but when the school is on vacation, the Chromebooks are housed in the buildings. They do not go out.
No, I know that. I was referring more to the vacations during the course of the year.
Yeah, it's not real likely in that there's such a heavy cost to children for taking off days unexcused. So,
it's a minor thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yeah. Andy?
Andrew Heibel, Howard Avenue, Edison, speaking as an individual. I had two questions or two statements. First one was on this past Sunday afternoon, I was driving past on Woodbridge Avenue, past Ben Franklin School, and the parking lot was filled to capacity with cars. The neighbors across the street, I believe it's the Temple, was using the school parking lot. Not only were they in every parking lot space, they were on the grass in the front of the school, on the side of the school. The Edison Township Police Auxiliary were crossing the people, so somebody obviously gave them permission. I don't know if they have a building use for them to rent the parking lot.
They do.
They do?
Yes.
And
they pay us an annual fee, yes.
And then they have insurance as well in case
Yes.
somebody falls?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. And my second is, back in, I want to say, March as an employee, we started getting rice notices via email, and we started questioning it. A letter was sent to Dr. O'Malley, and we did get a response back, and part of the response back was that it was because of the Kane Federation of Teachers Appellate Division decision, and that this was the public body would be issuing rice notices to employees, and that going forward the board would continue to provide these rice notices to all employees before each meeting in compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act. And under the Open Public Meeting Act, under NJSA 10-4-8, subsection D, adequate notice, it says that adequate notice means written advance notice of 48 hours to be given. For today's meeting, we received a notice via email this morning at 8:20. That's 10 hours and 40 minutes notice before the meeting. That's not 48 hours notice. So if you're going to be discussing employees tonight in closed session, you're violating the very keen Federation law that you guys are upholding.
You're accurate, and a mistake was made, so.
Okay, I understand mistakes are made around here by non-union employees, but if it was a union employee making a mistake, we would be disciplined, have our anger withheld, be written up for it. But if it's a non-union employee, nothing happens. According to the law, there should be no discussing of any personnel tonight in closed session. You should have to cancel your closed session for personnel and have set a meeting up for possibly Monday before your action meeting. You're violating the law.
Okay. We'll certainly take your comments under advisement, Mr. Heibel. We do have other aspects of closed session. So
that is correct.
Yeah, so we obviously have to discuss those. They have to hear from me about cases, and I think we have some other matters to discuss with respect to negotiation, but we'll certainly discuss the issue that you raised when we get to closed session.
Okay, and if any action is taken on personnel in closed session, you know, may have to seek other arrangements down the road and have files, charges, or whatever needs to be done, because you can't have it both ways. You can't follow the law one way and then not follow it the next. Thank you.
Any other one who wants to come to the microphone and speak on any issue? Okay. Seeing none, then I'll ask for the resolution by Mr. Michaud to go into a privileged session.
Okay. Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be resolved by the Board of Education of Township of Edison as follows. 1, the public shall be excluded from discussion of and action upon the herein specified subject matters. 2, the general nature of the subject matter to be discussed as follows. Attorney-client privilege discussion regarding student issues, critique of a charter school, affirmative action, ETA grievances, perk or unfair labor practices, ratification of ETA certified and non-certified contracts, and personnel matters. If we discuss personnel at all tonight, after we decide if we're going to discuss it, the topics are resignations and terminations, appointments, leaves of absences, changes of status, experience stipends, substitute staff, avid tutors, middle school team leaders, summer school avid literacy kickstart program, coaching appointments, and job descriptions. 3, it is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter shall be made public at such time as the need for non-disclosure no longer exists, and 4, this resolution shall take effect immediately.
Okay, thank you. First and a second, Mrs. Maroney, Mr. Shee.
Mr. DiStefano?
Yes.
Mrs. Brescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Peng?
Yes.
Mrs. Thorarico?
Yes.
Mrs. Maneker?
Yes.
Mr. Shee?
Yes.
Mrs. Ward?
Yes.
Ms. Maroney?
Yes.
Dr. Healy?
Yes.
All yes.
We'll be coming back into public session, so thank you for coming.